Thanks for joining us on another episode of Beyond the Listing, where we discuss the business of real estate outside of the listing environment. I'm your host, Jeremy Madore, and today I have the pleasure of having a return visit with a good friend of mine. And I'll just let her introduce herself because I don't think that I could do it justice.
Thank you so much. I'm Sara Lyman. I'm an associate broker at Real Brokerage in Central Massachusetts, and I'm also a production coach for Tom Ferry.
I'm so happy to have you back.
Yeah, it's been a wild couple of months since I've been here.
It's been a while, a couple of months indeed. It's been a minute, as they say. You've had a lot of comings and goings since then. And I know that the last time that we sat down, you were in a concerted effort or an intentional effort to find better direction as to what was next for you. And I know that you had the Tom Ferry thing going on at that time, I believe, as well.
Yep.
And you also have and still maintain, a brokerage approach to your team, et cetera. Tell us a little bit about what the last year has looked like so that we can kind of catch up to speed a bit.
Yeah. So over the last 3 to 4 years, I've really made some major shifts in my life. And I think after being self-employed, growing up in a family that was all self-employed, I kind of realized after my 3 older kids had all kind of graduated high school and were in college that there were things in my life that I was missing and things in my life that I wanted to be more present for. And the way I was working was in a way that was very unhealthy and not serving the purpose of my family. And honestly, not serving the purpose of me, but I couldn't see it at that point. So, trying to figure out a way of what to do between running a brokerage, being in production as an agent, which are 2 full-time jobs in and of themselves, and then being given this opportunity to start coaching, which is really my passion, just really meant I had to make some adjustments. So we had made some adjustments, and over the course of 3 years, kind of realized that wasn't necessarily fulfilling what we needed to do as a real estate team, and for me as a leader. And I got really busy with coaching. So I had kind of started off slow and I only had a handful of clients. And over the last probably 12 months, I'm up to about 35 clients now. And so that's a beautiful thing because I get to see things on all different agent brokerage team levels from across the country.
Are they primarily realtors?
They're all practicing real estate agents, but I have several broker owners and several team leaders.
Wrong word. But okay.
Yeah.
All right. But it's the real estate industry.
Real estate industry right now is where my focal point is. Kind of as I find my cadence with coaching, I have people that are asking me some questions about other business development. But right now there's just a lot of shifting and things going on
there's no shortage of learning.
I want to stay focused, So going back to your other question about the changes. Yeah. So I made these changes so that I could be more focused and present with my family. Yeah. I have a 13-year-old at home who absolutely adores me and I absolutely adore her. And I wanted to have that stronger connection with her than I did my other 3. And I think it's just a different demographic when you have one versus many.
Oh, without a doubt. When our 2 oldest leave the house because they're out of friends or whatever, all of a sudden we're stuck with 2. Stuck. That's a bad word. Really bad word. I'm trying to catch myself here. We're left with just the 2. And we don't know what to do with ourselves. And they're so easy to manage and they're so easy to get along with. And their dynamic between them has like significantly solidified over the past few years. But without the older 2 there's a lack of complication because teenagers, come on,
Yes.
I'm very proud of, being their dad. But the dynamic shift is incredible.
Yeah. I look at it as an energy shift. I'm really honed in on the energy that's around me and being around really positive people right now. And thinking back to the dynamic of my life at that time, there was just a lot of chaos, a lot of negative energy coming from teenagers or kids that are in college and them trying to work through their hormones and managing a brokerage and, all the things. So, the last 6 months has primarily been looking at the time that I have and making sure that I'm not filling the time that I wanted to be more present with my family with other things. And you and I have had this discussion.
Yeah, that's the danger.
You're really, really good from what you've told me about being home and being present with your family.
I'm good at making the effort.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Okay. I'm good at making the effort too, but
so off camera, we had talked about, before we started, we were talking about, how it's been, you went on vacation.
Yeah.
And if it's okay to quote, you said something to the effect of, it was the most serene time that you've experienced in 20 years.
Yeah.
The most present you've ever felt in 20 years.
Yeah.
I can honestly, consciously say that I don't know what that feels like. My head is an absolute chaotic mess most times. I try to find peace in the moment. It's just really hard when you have a house with 4 girls, and I struggle with ADHD big time, and so do the 4 of them. And sometimes it goes unchecked.
Yeah.
And, one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden there's like, how did I end up here kind of thing.
Yeah.
That really pulls away from the ability to remain present, because you have a lot of conflicting thoughts and ideas and noises, not so much in your head necessarily, but you get my spirit behind that, right? It's not like I have a voice inside my head or whatever. It's just like I have my inner narrator, right?
Yeah.
And one topic leads to another, which is very easy to like just go down a slippery slope of tangents, mentally. And it really detracts from the ability to remain focused on the moment in front of you. Yeah. And so, yes, I have every intention on being present for the moment, and I'm physically present for the moment, but mentally I'm still working on that.
Yeah. And the physically present, I think, is the part that when you're not tapped into the mental side of things and where your brain is focusing, is so hard, because people would look at me from the outside and think I had everything going well. Yeah. Everything was perfect. This girl's so put together. Her business is successful. Get the same thing. She's at all the sports games. She's doing this. She's doing that. She travels a lot. But at one point, my oldest daughter, Emma, said to me, I've never been on a vacation with you where you've put your phone down. Yeah. I've never... Like every vacation we go on, you are working all the time. I see how hard you're working, and I appreciated that as her mom. Yeah. But that was a very defining moment in the choices that I've made over the last 4 years. Yeah. And for people that are self-employed and that don't have anyone guaranteeing them a paycheck, it is very hard not to be focused on what's next. You and I have had that discussion.
This is an air quote word, but you have to. Right? You're compelled to, in order for a degree of consistency, or I hesitate to say the word, but guarantee of further progress. Because if you're not thinking like that or behaving like that, you have to anticipate that next move. And if you're not, you're going to be behind. Yeah. And we know that as business owners or even solopreneurs, right? Like it doesn't have to be, whether or not you own a business of 1 or a business of 16, 20, whatever, it doesn't quite matter. What matters is that being the leader of whatever business model you have, it compels you to a degree to do that. And here's the poison in it, though. As a culture, we celebrate success financially, career-wise, business-wise, and with an applause, an award, a pat on the back, but really it's an addiction. And I'm finding that I was addicted to that. And it's hard when you're faced with those words, because like, you talk about alcohol or drug use or whatever, those are more tangible addictions, and they're looked at negatively because they're destructive addictions. So is business.
100%.
Except that we celebrate it.
Yeah.
And that's a poison, and we let it into our lives because, well, we need work. Well, yes, we do. And we also need peace. Do you have both? And a lot of people, I think, business owners, I don't think that we can meet ourselves in the mirror and say, yeah, I have both. Like, we're like, yeah, man, I kill it every day, kill it every day. Well, that's all great. We can do chest beater mentality approach, but what does that really get us on the back end with our loved ones and our family? Do we even have loved ones in a family? Or do we have what looks like loved ones in a family? Right. And so there's that deep down integration that we're largely skipping out on, that we don't even know they're skipping out on it because we're so blind to our ambitions.
Yeah. And because society is saying, oh, look you're so successful. You're doing great.
And those attaboys,
you know,
right?
Great job.
Yeah.
Keep it up. Keep it going. And I think that within the industry that you support and the industry that I'm in, that's just amplified so much more. And I have to keep myself going back to the point that I became self-employed so that I could be the best mom I could be. I could be there for my kids. And it really hit me 4 years ago that I was there, but I wasn't really there. And then really doing a lot of deep dive work on joy and being present and what's important and what's going to be important for the next 20 years of my life, 40 years of my life, versus what I thought was important in my 30s and my early 40s. And so, coming back on this show and thinking about the North Star and thinking about where I've tried to get to, I went on vacation and was like really present for the first time. And that was so beautiful.
I need tips.
That I could just put my phone away. I had one deal to negotiate. I had just made it a huge brokerage switch. Yeah. So the fact that I'm 30 days in a new brokerage and I left to go on vacation and I can come back feeling like I really was just there with my husband and enjoyed his company was great.
I have so many questions.
Okay.
I have so many questions. Like you're pointing out the things that are the very things that would make me feel a sense of obligation and guilt and responsibility and pull me away from the moment of spending time with either Jan, my wife, or the family as a whole. Like we just went to Plum Island, not this past weekend, but the weekend prior. It was like the last weekend of school vacation. Yeah. And it was a barter deal where we photographed a home, and in trade we got Airbnb for 4 days. It was fantastic.
So cool.
And the basis of it, obviously, Plum Island in the winter is very different from the summer, right? But the truth of the matter is it was a different space, a little, different experience. We got to take in some museums and stuff, and I was there, and I wasn't working, except for Saturday morning I did some floor plan, QC or whatever. But I don't answer emails. I don't have to follow up with customers and clients because we have systems for that, right? Those are all in place. Still, though, I felt like an imposter. Like, I don't deserve this. I haven't earned this. I haven't done enough in order to have peace in this moment because, like, I didn't, and it's not things that I'm verbally telling myself, right?
Oh, no, it's these little demons that are in us.
That like, hey, that kind of thing. And to me, success isn't being in that space. True success to me is being peaceful in that space. Mm-hmm. I'm still working on what success is then, because I'm not peaceful in that space. So like you're talking to me about taking this vacation and being completely present. Sarah, help. I mean, for lack of a better term, and I'm not saying like live on this podcast, but more along the lines of like, explain to me some of the work that you put into place to get to that spot.
I think a lot of it is really focused on my emotional stability. A lot of it is being focused on being okay to be selfish. And a lot of it is focused on joy. I think that joy is a feeling that as an American society, we don't lean into enough, because the second we start to feel joy, a lot of these little inner demons or people in our heads start to say, but you should have done this.
It robs us.
Or you should have done that. Yeah. Or you should have done this. Or what if? And a lot of the work that I've been doing is really just focused on, one, being selfish, looking at my life and figuring out what am I going to tolerate and what am I not going to tolerate, and how can I control that? And two, when I'm in a moment that I'm really happy, or I'm in a moment that I can be around other people, catching myself when I start to think about what I have to do next. Catch myself in thinking about discipline. Anything other than that moment. Mm. And that is very, very difficult for someone like me who grew up with self-employed parents and from a very young age became self-employed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because your mind is always working, like we were just talking about, on the next thing. And you have to do that.
And the obligation and the guilt and all the things. So the new brokerage that we joined is very technologically savvy.
Yep.
And they have a lot of tech tools. And I could have spent this vacation the same way I've spent every other vacation in my life. And I travel a lot.
Okay.
I traveled 4 times between the end of January and coming here today.
Wow.
I could have spent that time focused on learning all the tech tools so that I could show up for my team as the best version of myself.
Okay.
And instead, when I saw them in the office this week and they asked me questions, I said, I don't know, I got to figure it out still. And I know that between now and Friday at 10 o'clock when we have our meeting, I have to figure it out. Right. But I wasn't going to let it go into that time with my husband, because my husband has sacrificed so much being with me for the 15 years we've been together and all of my crazy ideas. And hey, let's build a new office. And hey, let's go and join this office. Or hey, let's do this and let's do that and let's shift this. And hey, you want to help me with drone shots? And hey, you want to do this? That I knew that for me to be really happy and to have a successful marriage and a successful home life, it means me showing up differently for my kids and for him. Yeah. And that's where I am. And I'm really okay with it. It has pissed a lot of people off. There are a lot of people that I'm not pouring into anymore that are upset with me.
Okay.
And as an adult, that makes you turn around and think about, are these people, what is relationships? Yeah. What are the relationships you surround yourself with?
That's the unlocking that starts happening when you question your values, right? Because it really is a values discussion, right? And we can call it priorities or whatever, but the truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, it's your operational strategies. And if how you're operating is not in the best interest of the people that are most crucial in your life, including yourself, then you're not operating well. And when you catch yourself doing that because of a series of challenges given to you by somebody else, like a coach, or you're met with it in the mirror, right? Like that face-to-face, like realization is just, it's brutal. You start really pulling at the yarn on the sweater and you're just unraveling and unraveling.
It just keeps going.
You're like, hey, can somebody cut this, please?
And you can sit there and you can dwell on it.
Or you can do something.
Or you can make the choice of wanting to live your best life versus what someone else thinks that you should be doing.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, it's very easy to cave to the projection from others, right? I'm a people pleaser. That's who I am through and through, or at least that's what's been put upon me. Yeah. Whether intentionally or unintentionally is irrelevant, right? Like that's the role that I assumed. And for me personally, and I'll just be blunt, it was my survival mechanism growing up with an angry parent. And then, come to find out, it persisted into career. Yeah. And that's also why the business boomed.
Yes.
Because I was like, hey, I can be a different person for you and a different person for you. I can be everything to everybody and nothing to myself.
Yeah. So my 23-year-old daughter just got her real estate license. And I said to her the other day, one of the things that's made me so successful in this industry is that I'm a shapeshifter. Yeah. I can meet my clients.
I call it a chameleon.
Yeah. Where they are when they need me to be at their level. Yep. And exactly what you're saying, it comes from growing up people pleasing. Yeah. It comes from growing up thinking that you have to be perfect. And then the second you start to realize that, one, people pleasing is doing nothing for yourself. No. And two, there is no thing as perfection.
No.
You just start living your life a little bit differently. Yeah. A couple of years ago, I read a book by Brene Brown, which I honestly think is super instrumental in the work that I've been doing on myself. And it's called The Gifts of Imperfection. Yeah. And it truly looks at how we raise American children and what society does to put things in place to just keep us at a lower vibration.
Sure.
And I have it on Audible. I probably listen to it 3 or 4 times a year.
Oh, okay.
Because I just need that kick in the ass.
Okay, all right.
I'm not a repeat book reader with many things, but with that one, I 100% am.
Well, there's value right there then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that statement has value, right? Because if you don't do repeat anything, I don't even do repeat movies unless it's like delicious.
Star Wars.
Okay. Lord of the Rings.
Okay, yes, I could do Lord of the Rings multiple times too.
But for me, it's more about the things that really hit home hard. Those life lessons, those, especially if you can take that from an analogous standpoint and apply it to areas of your life where you're like, this resonates with me because of these things that I'm learning from it, even through like just comparable natures, right? But yeah, no, I get what you're saying with wanting and needing, because there's a degree of need there where you're deriving a significant value from rehearsing or rehearing what is coming through with that audiobook.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that I think that we all need,
It's like a sucker punch every time.
Yeah. Yeah. I have those.
Yeah.
I have those. Right now there's the challenge that I'm up against right now is, finding who my people are.
Yeah.
Because when you go through the process of, for lack of a better term, cleansing yourself of and I'm not even going to say toxicity, because like it's not the word, but the thrust upon you expectations. And unfortunately, I started them, right? By saying yes to what the question was at the beginning from a client or a colleague or a family member, you're subscribing yourself to a lifetime of that yes.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't know it at the time because you're like, oh, just the one thing.
Yeah.
But how many just the one things add up to it's all the time?
Yeah.
Right.
And then that adds up to the anxiety that you feel to have to just keep going at the pace that you're going.
Yeah. And so going through the process of, I guess, for lack of a better term, being more honest and not ducking and hiding and just saying, oh, I'll just get through it. I'll just push through it. By going through the process of just saying, I know that I've done that in the past. I'm sorry, I can't do that anymore. That's so hard because two things are happening. Two things are happening. You're letting them down and you know that. And you're recognizing in yourself what you've been giving away. Even if you've been charging for it, you've been giving it away for free.
Oh yeah. Like,
because it's a piece of you.
There's no
price that.
Yeah. There's no monetary price you can put on your energy.
No,
there isn't.
No. And it hits you like a truck when you realize that. And it's such a humbling experience when everything comes crashing in around you and you're like, this was all a house of cards that I constructed myself. And it was only through my own willpower that it kept going.
And how beautiful is it that you're strong enough to let it crash?
Yes.
That's this is like the mental space that I'm in right now. Is I am in my 20s and 30s. I was so scared to make mistakes because of how it would be perceived outside. And now I'm in this space where let's just blow it up and see what happens.
Okay.
And that's one
I'm
of the.
getting there. I'm not quite there fully.
That's okay. I'm a little bit older than you, so it's coming. It's coming.
It's not a race. It's not a race or competition.
But that's one of the beautiful things that I'm now giving back to my industry through the coaching that I'm doing is I can look at these agents and I can be maybe the only person that's ever said to them, I don't care how much money you make. I do not care how many transactions you do. I care about how much money is in your bank account at the end of every month.
Right.
And if you're living the best quality of life that you can. Yeah. And I think it was from watching agents and developing agents for 20 years within my own brick and mortar and seeing the stress that I was putting on myself and seeing the stress that they were then also going through.
Yes.
And realizing.
Because they're modeling it after you.
Yes. And realizing how toxic that is.
Yeah.
Because none of it matters. It does not matter if you are a top producer in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. It does not matter if you are a top producer in the United States of America. None of that. The number one agent, none of that matters.
It's a label.
If you're not happy.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
And we've, as a society, have forgotten how to be happy. So like last year was my journey back to joy. That was what I had. That was journey the name of last year for me.
Do you give your years names?
I didn't until last year, but last year was
such. It's got to be a thing from now on.
Yeah, it totally does. I haven't really figured out this year, but.
It's like the Friends episodes, the one with, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, really good things. I totally hear what you're saying about trying to figure out who your tribe is.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's been a lot of the last 3 or 4 months and being okay just to walk away from things that aren't for me anymore.
I'm okay with that now.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'd say in the past 6 to 10 months, I've been okay with it. And I haven't severed relationships. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I've just said, in order for our relationship to continue, this is what I need from you. And I've had people sever it for me. And that really highlights right there where you stand. And you're like, really? That's all it took? Is for me to put my one boundary in place, or one set of boundaries that I've never had a boundary before, and I put one in place, and all of a sudden, adios. Yeah. Like it hurts, but it's cathartic in a weird way.
And when you see the space, it opens up for better things to be in your life.
Space out in here and in here.
Yeah.
And it allows you to take on and absorb more truth around you, more of what's real and more meaningful. And I think the hardest part for me is doing this while also being an effective husband and an effective dad. Those are roles that are very attention demanding, and deserving, right? It's not negative term. And so to also go through that healing process yourself while embarking on these, subsequent or these concurrent journeys, it's taxing. It's really taxing. So the thing that I'm trying to parse out right now is honestly trying to build a friends group. And I have lots of acquaintances, Sarah, so many acquaintances. I can't say that I have many friends at all. And it's not so much the quantity versus the quality.
Oh yeah.
I got one guy who is like, in a perfect world, he and I would have been best friends since birth, right? I only met him a year and a half ago. And because of him and his wife, I embarked on this self-discovery journey because he pushed me to. And, it's like starting a Rube Goldberg machine.
Yeah.
You can't stop it. So because of him, this is why I'm able to talk like this with you. And the hardest part is that, we have to figure out how he and I can continue to connect in some ways when there's other outliers, that are impacting the ability to have that relationship. And so having to try to build a tribe to replace what was there, but is now gone as a result of decisions that I needed to make. Oof.
I think that really understanding how to lean into love and how to lean into just embracing people for who they are has been a big portion of my last 2 years. Really trying to focus on not judging others and their actions and their choices, and just finding people that I want to be around because I thoroughly enjoy them has been a huge part of growth for me.
Sure.
But that takes time. So it's looking at the buckets in your life and figuring out, how am I not replacing them with work? And so it was taking that realization that, hey, I know tons of people. Everybody loves me. Everybody invites me to things. But if I'm having a bad day, who do I call up and talk to? If I'm having something exciting that I want to share, who am I calling up and telling? If I want to have a game night at my house or I want to go out to dinner, who am I calling? And I think as an adult, you let people in, and then all of a sudden something goes really wrong in their life. And then you're like, oh, wait a second. There's just a lot of disruptors, and it's figuring out how everything works with the disruptors that are kind of going around. It's just a weird journey, this midlife kind of space that we're in.
Yeah. I think that commonly it's done a disservice by the label of midlife crisis.
Oh yeah. No, it's not a crisis.
That's the thing.
No.
There's a difference between buying something as a stopgap.
Yeah.
Or changing your hairstyle or changing how you dress or whatever, or maybe even like behave outwardly. There's a huge difference between that and actually having a completely from the ground up rebuild of your life. And it's not easy for others to see that going on in your life and understand it. And so there's a lot more questions than there are answers.
And people that walk away.
Yeah. But there's plenty of answers for people who take the time to ask the questions. And that's, I think, where the largest amount of transparency really starts coming out. Who's ready to ask me questions? That's a big one, because when you're met with basic questions and you give more than basic answers, and it doesn't lead to deeper questions, you're like, yep, I know where I am.
Yeah. Is this another just subsurface relationship where there's things they want to take from you?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to air too much laundry, but when you give someone a phone call and they're like, I miss the old Jeremy.
Yeah, but that old Jeremy made them comfortable.
That's exactly it.
The new Jeremy makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I have taken the selfless stance that if what I'm doing and the choices I'm making to better myself and better my family are making you uncomfortable, then that means you really don't care about me. Because I'm not doing what I'm doing to hurt anyone.
No.
I'm doing what I'm doing to love on the people I care about most. And so that there's enough of me to pour in to the people that I truly care about and reciprocate that.
Right. Including the person who's having that challenge with you, right? Like our attempt to set boundaries, or not even attempt, our desire to set boundaries and put them in place and hold them isn't to sever relationships. It's to galvanize a perpetual relationship that works for both individuals. And if through that process, that individual feels as though they're robbed, there's clear signs that you were being used, and not maybe maliciously, unknowingly sometimes, right? But when you are met face to face with that reality, it really just calls everything into question, and especially when it's closer contacts or family members and stuff, and that's hard. Yeah. So the joy journey. Tell me a little bit about some intentional things that you did to really make that the year to remember, the year of joy.
I did a passion project. It was a short-term podcast that I had done, and I was interviewing female real estate agents from across the country on their life and their business. Okay. And I gained so much knowledge through that process. And one of the agents that I interviewed, she had said to me that she does something where she calls it her threshold effect. And it's basically that every time she goes into a new space, she takes a minute to catch her breath before she walks through the door. Whether it's with her client, with her family,
being an actual physical,
a physical threshold, the physical doorway that she's walking through, so that she can be as most present with that person in those moments as possible.
So when I go through that doorway, everything is about what's past that doorway, not what's back there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so much of the things that I was doing wrong, or that I thought I was doing wrong in my family life, was I would come home, I would go through the motions of being a mom that is like picking my kids up, running them here, running them there, making sure there's dinner, making sure there's that. But when I would come home and I would have all the baggage of everything I had to do to finish my workday. I had all the baggage of everything I had to do tomorrow, and I wasn't being present at home. And so when I had this conversation with this amazingly brilliant agent, I started showing up differently on my work appointments. Okay. And I started pulling in my driveway and sitting in my car, sometimes for 2 minutes, sometimes for 30 minutes, and just sitting in my car and finishing what I needed to finish so that I could walk into my house and not, one, immediately pour a glass of wine. And two,
it's so tempting.
It is. And for me, it had gotten really unhealthy. Yeah. And just really lean into being present. Yeah. And my house is really chaotic right now. I've got Lincoln at home at 13, and then I've got 3 other ones that are popping back in and living for 2 months and living for 6 months and not living there, but coming home once a week
oh boy.
And so you're
giving me anxiety just thinking about our future.
Being able to enjoy all of that was something that was really important to me. So focused on that threshold has been a huge game changer for me. That's really allowed me to feel more joy, leaning into my friendships and really trying to give time to people that are important to me that I wasn't giving them before. And being a better friend has given me a lot of joy. And then shutting off work. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some nights that I can't do it. But I had, for the better half of 18 years, never once just sat and really played board games with my family. I played board games, but my phone was in my hand. I'm not a big video game person, but my 13-year-old loves video games. Yeah. And so we'll sit around and we'll play Mario Party, or we'll play, Jamboree or something like that. And these are things that I just never did a lot of. Okay. When I go to her sporting events, I'm there and I actually watch. And I'm making it a conscious effort to initiate conversations where before I would just let my brain think about work and not actually communicate with my kids. And I think that's been a big thing. And it was another thing that was brought on by my kid. Lincoln had said to me, we were having family dinner, and she had said to, well, Mom doesn't really listen when I talk anyway. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, no, she's like, you'll pick me up from school and ask me how my day is, but I know you're not listening.
My word.
And it's like all these little things that so many people just continue to overlook.
Oh my goodness, Sarah. Do you know John Deloney?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay. You know Dave Ramsey?
Yeah.
Okay. So John Deloney works for Dave Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of his personalities. And John Deloney is, he's a double doctorate. He deals with counseling and psychology and stuff. And he runs a great podcast. It's called the Deloney Show. And he talks a lot. This is all mental health podcast is what it is. And he talks a lot about Brene Brown, and he works with callers to really address some of the challenges, like very specific challenges, right? Like he doesn't sit with them a long time, but he highlights the topic that they're talking about. And he was recounting a story that, you know, he loves baseball, and he made baseball such a part of his life that his son at the time, this was many years ago, would sit down with him and watch baseball. They'd watch baseball together. Houston Astros, big fan, all that kind of stuff. And his son made a comment one day. He goes, "Dad, do you love me as much as you love baseball?"
Another one of those sucker punch moments.
And he shut off the TV. And he realized that he was modeling for his son what love looked like. And that in order for him and his son to have a relationship, it had to be surrounded by baseball, right? And so, like, hearing that kind of stuff, it's like, what are we doing in our own lives that is embodying that same idea, and it's just not being talked about? Because not every kid is going to ask that question.
No.
Your wife or your husband is not going to ask that question. They're just going to potentially rightfully assume where they stand, you know, through unwritten or unspoken communication, body language, whatever, right? And so it's the sigh, it's the eye roll, it's the heavy shoulders, and all that kind of body language that they're met with from us when they perceive themselves to be an interruption. Talk about a sucker punch. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've had to sit down and look one of our kids in the face and said, "Honey, you are never an interruption. You're never an inconvenience. It might not happen at a convenient time, and that's okay. If you need me, you need me. If you want me, you want me. I'm not going to be like, you know, I get that you need me right now, but too bad, type of thing, you know." And it used to be that Daddy's working, don't interrupt him. So we talked about home office before we got on air. That's the poison of a home office, because where does your work end and your home begin?
Yes.
As business professionals, we already go through the threshold with the work in hand. What are we doing when we have a home office, Sarah? Like, whenever I get off the road from photographing homes for the day, I'd have to do my uploads.
Yeah.
And so that means that I have to take my card and I have to download it onto my computer, kind of do some massage work on the photos and send them off to the editor. The process to do that, and of course, finalize floor plans, upload video content, there's a lot of stuff. It sometimes took about an hour. Yeah. And I didn't have the luxury of having a private home office down in the basement corner or whatever, where it was easy for me to like pretend I didn't exist for the rest of the family. I had a laptop just outside the kitchen. Table. And so Dad was there, but he wasn't there. Like, that's real heavy stuff. And our kids are some of the first generation that is really living in this work from home. And I shudder to think what's going to end up happening long-term to mental health on their end.
Especially with all the multitasking that they're already doing in their little brains.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And then they see us at home working from home multitasking.
Yeah. And we're modeling for them what they assume is the right thing to do, because why would my parent be doing the wrong thing? Yeah. You know, they trust us. And so they're like, well, I mean, Mommy talks about being healthy or Daddy talks about being healthy. This must be what healthy looks like. Whoa. Yeah. That's just galvanizing it for years to come. So anyway, soapbox, sorry.
No apologies.
I'm passionate about it.
It's nice to have somebody that we can have vulnerable discussions with, because that doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. It's such a positive thing that when that does happen, though, because even if it's not clean, It's just full of mess and full of like saying the wrong things at the wrong times and making mistakes. If you have that degree of vulnerability and there's a spoken or unspoken understanding that apologies mean apologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like sorry means I really didn't mean that, and or I see the error in my judgment, right? Mm-hmm. You can have real open conversation, including negative conversation, and still exit out the other side more bonded for it.
100%. And that's where you are allowing yourself to grow.
Yeah.
We are so focused on this idea of perfection that it stops us from seeing the growth that we could have.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what's 25 looking like? What are we aiming at? Do we have a name? You started with Real.
Yep. Yeah. So we transitioned over to Real 30 days ago. Really cool cloud-based office, a cloud-based brokerage, lots of technology, lots of really interesting educational outlets for agents, which is something that I haven't really seen in a brokerage model before. So I love the idea that I get to coach on a nationwide level and learn from agents all over the country. Now my agents have the same opportunity to be able to learn from agents from all over the country,
it's really networked
all
in.
different marketplaces.
This is great.
Yeah, it's very, very Zoom focused, tons of masterminds on all different topics.
Ongoing,
all of like every day. There's ones that you can join, and they can be long term, they can be short term.
Okay.
They can be on marketing, they could be on bookkeeping, they could be on sales, they can be on
one-offs
negotiations.
as well as series.
Yeah, it's super, super cool. My 23-year-old just got her license and is coming to work with us. And for her to go through their new agent onboarding, she's like, somebody actually is giving me direction. And I was like, I'm a real estate coach for the number one real estate coach in the country. I've been giving you direction, but I wanted you to get through your licensing class first, you know?
For sure.
But for her just to be able to tap into that as a brand new agent and be able to do all these things, I think has been really cool. For me, it's been a learning curve. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of tech that I need to learn, but I'm excited to learn it.
You're like that though.
Yeah, for me, I'm always growth mode.
Right.
You know, I'll go to a conference and I'll call you up and I'll be like, Jeremy, this is what they're doing. We got to try to figure out how to do this. So I'm in a really good cadence with my coaching clients right now and seeing a lot of growth. I've got one amazing agent from Vancouver, Washington, and to see what he's doing on video and to see where he was when we started 18 months ago and to see where he is right now. We're the same age. We've been in the industry the same amount of time. It's just like it fills my cup so much. And then I guess the other part of it is just continuing on this journey to be able to gift back time with my husband and with Lincoln and my other kids that I know I had taken away from them before.
Yeah. And the sobering part is that no matter how much you do, you know that you can't make up for what was before.
Yeah, but I really don't live.
I know you don't.
And this is another one of my superpowers. I've gotten to the point where that's in the past.
Yep.
I can't fix any of that anymore. Yep. And all I can do is try to figure out how to be better tomorrow.
What now?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And that's an important distinction, right? I think that a lot of people, there's an adage of like, you're not driving backwards, so stop looking in the rear view.
Yeah. And so many people live there.
They do.
So many people. I can't do this because this happened to me. Oh, I could never be like that because of this.
Yeah.
No, you all can. You just have to want it for yourself.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice. We can either so I said, I struggle with ADHD. ADHD is my superpower.
Yes.
Like literally, I can siphon knowledge so damn fast. And it's also my undoing. Which one do you want today?
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, the hardest part is to use that superpower without also then going down the same rabbit hole as before of becoming too invested in something that wasn't really giving back to my life. Right. And that's like the chef's kiss to figure out that combo. Yep. Right.
And to look at those buckets and realize where you need to pour in and not feel guilty about letting the other one stay empty. I'm not going to feel guilty about that anymore.
Yeah. That's the guilt's definitely killing me still.
Yeah.
And working on that one too. But it's important that you're identifying all of these things and making the conscious decision as to what to do with it.
Yeah.
Versus just saying, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just going to.
And the most important part of that is I don't get it right.
That's okay.
But I acknowledge the fact that I'm at least trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I catch myself working. Like this morning, I didn't get up and do any exercise. I got up, I showered, and then I went and I put in a new listing and I sent out a bunch of contracts all before 6:30 a.m.
Sure.
That's not a healthy approach to life that I want to lead,
Yeah.
but it's okay every once in a while not to get it perfect.
Sure.
Okay.
Or to do that intentionally, but knowing for sure what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like I stayed up late last night working so that I could hit the road early this morning to get here on time to do the podcast today, etc. Kristen was awesome. She worked some magic. She renegotiated some of the podcast timing today so that everything happened noontime onward, but I had already accomplished the work and I'm like, this is found time. This is fantastic. And so I got to have a full dedicated meal with the kids and my wife before I got on the road, but I didn't have to do any of my office work because I had already done it the night before. Yeah. It was serendipitous, of course, but being able to pull the trigger on those moments in time and be there consciously and not just happen to coast through them. Yeah. That's the differentiator, right? And making sure that if they're not happening on their own, because sometimes they don't, that you make them happen, right? Or carving out time. I've been after, this is a note to Jen, I've been after my wife to sit with me and make a new family calendar, destroy the previous one completely, assume that nothing that's on the calendar now, except for the non-negotiables, like the kids have to be at school at this amount of time, right? So there's certain things that you just simply cannot move. I'm self-employed. I get to say when I work. Mm-hmm. She's self-employed. Well, through the company, she does all of our social media. She doesn't have to do the social media at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. She can do the social media at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying to do that, but we have options, right? And some of the hardest things, though, is imagining what your life could be like if you chose to not self-impose restrictions that are expected to be on you from society. Yeah. Whether that is parents, friends, colleagues, clients, it doesn't matter who, society as a whole, or your sphere. And so reimagining what your life looks like is a complicated thing because it requires a level of curiosity and creativity that I think that a lot of people have a challenge with because we're so used to staying in our comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And so it's very unnerving to imagine what an empty calendar looks like,
And to understand that the comfort zone that they're filling is for other people. It's not for themselves. Mm. And I think a lot of people that are self-employed have a problem being quiet. They have a problem sitting and just being present because that makes them uncomfortable. And I'm decided last year I'm going to get really comfortable with that.
When busy is your drug, doing nothing feels like torture.
Yeah.
And that's me.
Yep. Yeah. You're getting there.
I'm getting there because I know it, right? Yeah. And
you see it.
And I see it. I'm cognizant of it. I don't know precisely what levers to pull and when, because it is fairly complicated insofar as there's a multi-tiered approach of that tear down, right? We're not talking taking a high-rise tower and setting dynamite to it, call it a day.
No.
I'm literally systematically unbuilding levels, right? And I think that's the healthiest way of going about it because there are people that just go torched earth.
Oh, yeah. I could have walked away and sold my brokerage and not cared what happened to anyone.
There are days where that was an attractive option.
But instead, I really aligned with who I knew was going to take care of them the best that they could and made sure that nothing changed on their end. Literally nothing. Yep. And they could have chosen to be angry at me, or they could have looked at it as a gift that now I get my own wings to spread and fly.
Sure. Which is really the biggest gift.
Yeah.
Because instead of controlling other people, the micromanaging and all that kind of stuff, you're truly allowing them to grow.
Yeah.
And how many times do we question, or prior maybe, right? I have heard from multiple people like, hey, I got this team, man, they're not contributing, man. And I'm like, why? What do you think? Well, they're just lacking motivation, this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, do you ever think maybe that you're just like a giant maple tree standing in their way and they're just a little sapling? Mm-hmm. Move out of their area so that you're not casting a shadow on them.
Yeah.
because they don't have the wherewithal to uproot themselves to find sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they do, they're going to find it without you. So be creative. Sorry to point at you.
No, it's okay.
To be creative and thinking outside the box, to uproot yourself and getting out of other people's way so that they can truly develop who they are without you just doing this whole thing the whole time.
Yes.
That's the best thing for everybody involved. It's the hardest thing for the person that's been doing this, as you saw before we got on, because I was trying to help, and it's well-intentioned and stuff, but I have people on purpose, And
they know it better than you do.
And they do.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah.
And I'm not proud to admit that, right?
Yeah.
Like
But and I said this to you when we talked on the phone the other day, that's the most beautiful spot to be in, because then you help develop them the right way. Right. You gave them the courage to say, I'm going to go and do this. Yeah, get out of my way. Get out of my way. Get out of my way.
Move over, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Hold my beer. But yeah.
When you are when you're self-employed, so much of what you do is based on your ego and making your ego feel good. That's why you think you have to be perfect all the time. And when you realize that the ego is the absolute worst thing that you could have, it just changes how you go about life. It really, at least for me, it really truly has.
I can align with that. Yeah. I don't take contest to anything you've said. Yeah. It all checks boxes for me, for sure. But, well, I wish you a successful 25.
Thank you. It's already been great.
I am excited to hear what you label this year as.
Okay.
So, year of joy followed by, hey, it could easily be another year of joy, Sarah.
It was my journey back to joy.
Journey back to joy. Sorry.
So, and I definitely feel like I am in a very joyful state.
Okay.
Right now, the more fun I have in my business, the better my business gets. Okay. And the more fun I have in life, the more joy I have in business.
Yeah.
So
they're really serving each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, thank you.
Thank
you for being here.